And what's required of you to get to that place and to be that kind of person is for you to actively look at yourself. This is technically shadow work, but actively look at yourself and look at where it feels good for you to be the victim. It feels good for you to be the underdog. It feels good for you to facilitate this identity of yourself where like people don't realize what they're missing.
You're listening to the From Imposter to Empowered podcast. I'm your host, Jill Perrick, a business and mindset coach who specializes in imposter syndrome. If you feel like you're not as smart, capable, or worthy as you actually are, and that someone is going to find you out, then you come to the right place. I went from being a struggling government worker, working my coaching business on the side, but feeling unworthy and burnt out, to making multiple six figures helping women overcome imposter syndrome so they too can sign clients, make bank, and have the business or career of their dreams. I am nothing special. I have a stuttering disability, ADHD, and I struggle with anxiety and depression. So if I can learn how to feel good enough and overcome my inner imposter, then so can you. Let's dig in.
Heidi ho bitches, welcome back to the 300th episode of the From Imposter to Empowered podcast. And I'm going to hit you with a real truth today that I just want you to let sink in to your brain. And that is the fact that your Stripe account, the money that has come through your business, that number is not indicative of your self-worth, okay? But what it is indicative of is how you perceive your self-worth, how you see yourself. Because if you are somebody that has constantly looked at what other people are doing and you're telling yourself, why do they have X when I can do the same thing? Why do they have this and this and this and this and I don't? Even though we kind of do the same things, we run in the same circles, right? I have more education or more certifications or whatever your ego is like flaring up and saying to you. I want you to clock that because this is the most dangerous thing that I see. And I was a victim of it too. I have totally been in this place for a very, very long time where my ego was the reason why I was not overcoming imposter syndrome, because while on the surface I was telling myself, you're so good at blah, 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 I still was not seeing the results that I wanted. And I was looking around me and seeing all these other people. Like I was in this mastermind, and in this mastermind there were a ton of other girlies that were achieving amazing things, and I would constantly compare myself. Constantly, every single time somebody shared a win, whenever I had a win or an amount of cash that I secured through a new client, I would be so excited about it. And then I would be like, I can't even celebrate because this person over here is celebrating like a even bigger thing than me. But I was telling myself, especially because we were having these peer coaching calls and we had to do them. And I would coach them and they would get incredible results from the coaching that I was giving them. And I'm thinking to myself, why am I not making the same amount of money as the coach that was coaching me, as these people who were making a lot of money? And it all came down to not my skills or any of the things that are actually important, but it was how I was perceiving myself. I didn't see myself as a big deal. I didn't see myself as one of the best coaches in the industry. I didn't see myself as somebody that could achieve this thing. And I've achieved a lot of shit. I wrote and self-published a book. I have made multiple six figures in my business. This podcast has over 125,000 downloads as of today when you're listening to this. I'm sure it has even more now. And it's the 300th episode today, right? I've coached so many clients, right? But at this time, a couple of years ago, I was just getting around to publishing my book. And I still was telling myself, like, why don't I have a bigger business? Why don't I have more clients? And this ego, this like secret jewel of the industry, these thoughts were what kept me small for so long. I would tell myself, I am just like the best kept secret in the industry. That's why. Oh, if I just had more followers, if I had her connections, if I had this, if I had that, then I would be making more. I never stopped to be like, what if it's me and how I perceive my self-worth? in an Instagram from last month, I was talking about this client who I used to work with, who I would say was like the evil eye personified. Not that she was evil, but that there is a certain air to somebody that like is in competition with you. And I've had friends like this, and I've had clients like this as well. And this client in particular, who actually is incredible, but she had a lot of self-worth issues. And she would say things like, oh yeah, like we're the exact same. And I would be like, my income is 10 to 20K a month and yours is $1,000 a month. How are we the same? And not in like a hierarchy way, not in a I'm better than you kind of way, but she would almost say like, I don't get it. How come you have all of the success and I don't? That's kind of the energy and the attitude that she would come to our calls with. And she would kind of be like, I just don't get it. Like, how are you doing XYZ when like you and I are so similar? And it was like, I'm not sure if you want the coaching response to this. I think you just want to be told, like, how come you aren't seeing these results, right? But the truth is, she was not working harder than me. The truth was, she was not believing in herself the way I was believing in myself. The truth was, I was perceiving who I was and my self-worth differently. I was starting to put myself in bigger rooms and actually being like, I belong here. I was launching more, I was doing more, and again, not from a burning out, you need to do more place. It was, I had the energy and I had the capacity to do more because of the belief I had in myself, because of the work I was doing on myself, right? And I've said this before on the pod, but when I see somebody who's really successful, or when people like ask me about what I've accomplished and the money that I make and the clients that I have, blah, 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 I always say, like, I know that those people and that I have worked really hard, and not in a hustly way, in the way that like they're just relentless. Like, they're like a fucking psychopath. Like, you believe in yourself and what you're creating so much that it isn't even a question, but like you are always going to succeed. Even if you fucking fall on your face, you're going to reframe it. You are going to completely change your life and change everything about your life because you said that you would, right? And again, I've had clients like this before who experience a setback and use it against themselves instead of reframing it. And, you know, this is also a piece of the coaching that I do. I think that with the kind of coaching that I do around self-worth, around the inner work, around shadow work, all these kinds of things, there is a reprogramming and reframing piece that sometimes I do have to teach clients, but I can't always teach a good attitude, right? And do not fucking come and work with me if you have a shitty attitude. And if you're gonna work for 5 minutes and then be like, where's the results? And I know that I talk about a lot, but it's because I've had a lot of experience with people who almost kind of like deceive me in the beginning in terms of like, yep, they're going to show up, they're going to do the work, blah, 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 blah. And then they've come in and they're not doing anything. And we're moving through some really good shit. And then it just all goes to waste when they're left to their own devices. And I'm like, girl, there has to be a place where you are doing the work and realizing that like I can't be attached to your business for you. You have to want this for yourself. And after I cleaned up my messaging and I did all of that kind of stuff, like I really started to get a great group of clients. I really started to see an improvement in the kind of clients who I was attracting. And this like was like a couple of years ago now, but I can't want your business for you. And going back to what I was talking about in terms of your ego is going to flare up, and your ego is going to say, well, it's because I don't have as much time as her. I don't have the connections that she has. I don't have the followers that she has. I don't have the engagement that she has. I don't have this. I don't have that. It is such a fucking cop-out. When the reality is, anybody that is actually successful online and like has been for years and is growing a empire, they're growing a brand, they have kept at it and they keep going and they reframe every failure and every rejection as redirection, as something that is actually for them and going to contribute to their highest good. And what's required of you to get to that place and to be that kind of person is for you to actively look at yourself. This is technically shadow work, but actively look at yourself and look at where it feels good for you to be the victim. It feels good for you to be the underdog. It feels good for you to facilitate this identity of yourself where like people don't realize what they're missing. But that may temporarily make you feel good to be the industry's best kept secret, but what does it have you? It has you an empty fucking Stripe account. And again, your Stripe account does not dictate your worth, your amount in your PayPal, your bank account, whatever it is, that does not dictate how actually worthy you are. When the money comes, when the clients come, it is just a verification of something that you've always known about yourself. Right? And that's how it's going to feel when you allow yourself to feel the self-worth prior to that. When you know the self-worth work comes first and then the money will follow inevitably, because that's just who you fucking are. And what your business has made and what it hasn't made is a direct indicator to how you feel about yourself at that point in time, to how you see yourself. Now, do I believe that there is a delay? Yes. Whenever there is a manifestation that you are bringing to life, whenever a client is on their way to you, you've heard me talk about the fact that like in the sales process, you are only seeing like a sliver of the sales process, because there is a time period where people are like on their way to you, right? And you're not always going to see that sales process until they actually reach out, until they send the application in. Like that's the end of their sales process when they are ready to work with you. But when it comes to manifestation, there is always a delay. There is always a delay between the thing that you want and the work that you're putting in, and then the compound effect of all the work you're doing leading to the result. So what this looks like is you doing the inner work, you doing the self-worth work, you believing in yourself, you taking the action, and then you carrying on with your life, continuing to do the actions, acting as if you already would if you had that self-worth and if you had that worthiness. And this can feel so difficult when you are so used to not believing in yourself, to not thinking empowered, worthy thoughts about yourself. But as you do it and as it becomes second nature, it becomes a lot easier and it just becomes your identity. This is the work that we do when you work with me in one-to-one coaching. This is the work that we do in the From Imposter to Empowered program. So when you're ready to do that inner work so it can lead to the business that you want, the high-ticket clients that you want to sign, the life that you want, the luxurious fucking life that you want, come and work with me. But as you are doing the work, we're not constantly checking the 3D for results, because eventually this work is going to compound. And then you start to see it show up in the form of a client, in the form of a sale, in the form of, oh my God, like I pitched an idea for this offer and I made like a little Kajabi checkout sales page for it. And I did all the things I need to do and I sold it. And now I'm like sitting on my back deck enjoying the sun on a Saturday and a sale came through. And it's like, I just had this idea for this offer a couple of weeks ago and now I'm seeing a sale come through. I created that, right? But what happens is people expect to have the good thoughts about themselves, and the second they don't receive the validation, they're like, where's the results? But we know that it is a compound effect, and you are just building off of that. So yes, your Stripe account and everything that you're currently experiencing is a result of how you have felt about yourself in the past. It is compounding to now. But what are you going to do about changing that for the future, changing that for the rest of 2025? When you are listening to this, we are halfway through 2025, which is fucking insane. How are you going to change the next 6 months for yourself? Are you going to lay down the roots that you will feed and nurture and see begin to bloom later in the year? And sometimes it doesn't even have to take that long. Sometimes you can have an idea, pitch it, launch it, and somebody jumps in right away, right? Somebody has been waiting for you to sell this offer. But for example, with something like my one-to-one coaching, that is for a very specific person. And I just don't take anybody in these kinds of offers, right? It's high ticket. It's something that's very, very close proximity. So I have an application. I have an idea of who I want in that container. And like, it may take me a couple of weeks, a couple of months to fill that roster of clients. But I'm okay with that because I know that the work that I'm putting in now is only going to compound down the road. But this isn't possible if I am feeding into that egoic side of me, into the side of me that is like, we are the underdog. Nobody can see our passion. Nobody can see how good we are. We are the best kept secret. Nobody wins when I genuinely believe that, when I compare myself against other people, because that shit doesn't matter. What matters is how I see myself. And do I see myself as a big dog? Do I see myself as somebody who is capable and worthy of charging what she wants to charge? Like, let's talk about the fact that people are out here with skills and certifications and things that would qualify them to charge high ticket, but they charge such low amounts of money for their services. And I'm sure you're listening to this and you're like, I am fucking one of those people. And you do sign a client in that regard, and then you feel a little bit resentful because you know that you should have charged more for it. And this is a complete indicator of how you view yourself and how you view your services. Is you're going to charge lower because you convince yourself that if it is lower, then people are going to pay. But what you don't realize is in that transaction is respect. It is the level of standard and the quality that the potential client expects. It is the level of attention, care, respect, time that you are putting into the offer. And again, it always ends up being a thing where down the road you feel resentful and you feel like I could have been charging way more for this. And you're not doing that because you could. This is not about raising what you charge because you think, oh, I deserve for this to be $10,000, right? Like for a 3-week course, right? Like this is accurately judging that the time and the effort and the quality of work and the mental energy, the emotional energy that this is going to take. It makes total sense why I would charge $12,000 for 6 months for one-to-one coaching. And I'm not even on the high end, you guys, but that is what I charge. I charge $2,000 a month for one-to-one coaching because I know the time, the mental energy, the amount of resources and backlog of courses and curriculums and everything that my clients get beyond the calls, beyond the one-to-one Telegram channel with me. It's not just about what is this service worth? It is, what is this service worth to me? And how am I judging its worth by the work that I am putting into it? And how am I perceiving the value of my work? Because there is a coach out there who is charging way less for the same thing that I'm doing, right? But the only difference is how she perceives herself and how I perceive myself. So it's important for you to have the courage and to have the audacity to be like, I know what this is going to take in my mental energy, in my emotional energy, in the amount of time and effort and education and certifications and experience that I already have in everything that the client is going to get. It's all a culmination of that. And again, you have to be the person that decides this is what my work is worth. And this is how I view myself as a leader. And this is not from an egoic place. So we're not just like blindly raising our prices. We're not just like saying, you know what, I'm worthy of way more than blah, 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 right? It's from a grounded place. It's from a worthy place. And you can tell this by somebody who can stand in something for longer than 5 minutes, right? It's not the person that is constantly changing their Instagram bio. It is not somebody that is constantly changing up like how they do content or constantly changing what niche they're talking about. It's not somebody that's constantly like dropping new offers and leaving other offers behind when there was actually nothing wrong with them. There's not people who are like declaring every 3 seconds that they were triggered or activated by something going on. Worthiness is grounded. Self-worth is grounded. And you will actually be able to withstand more, be more emotionally resilient, have the emotional fortitude to keep going, because you know it's all going to work out. You know it's all happening exactly how it should for you. And you know that you're worthy of being a big dog. You know that you're worthy of having everything that somebody else has. And that means that you also know that you need to go bigger, that you need to put yourself in those rooms, that you need to go harder, do more, launch more. And again, not from a hustle and burnout place, from a place of worthiness, because you know it's all going to work out exactly as it should. Because the most dangerous thing, I'm going to say this one last thing and then I'm going to go, but the most dangerous thing that you cannot have as a business owner is hope. If you do not have hope, aka a good fucking attitude about where you're going and about, is all of this worth it? If you are asking those questions, you need to take a step back, because are you really in integrity with growing an audience, with growing an empire? If you're constantly asking yourself, is this all worth it? If you are contemplating if you're even going to be here in a couple of weeks, in a couple of months, sit with that. I love you. If you want to jump into this work with me, you can apply for one-to-one coaching, or you can come and join us in the From Imposter to Empowered program. I love you, and I will see you next week.